Good morning, students. We have been trying to understand the historical circumstances under which the princely states have emerged in the Indian context. In the previous class, I had given you an idea of what the idea of a princely state is making in, and we have also made a case study of Awadh. So we have around about 4 to 5 princely states about which we are supposed to have an idea. So today we will be handling Hyderabad and Mysore, the historical circumstances in which the idea of princely state has floated was given to you in the previous class. In today's class, we will try to discuss directly the emergence of Hyderabad as a princely state and the emergence of Mysore as a princely state. On the whole, we will have to do 5 states. So today we will be taking up 2 states and tomorrow we'll be taking up another 2 states. So today's topic is princely states of Hyderabad and Mysore. I have put some of the slides, and these slides give you an idea of this slide is that of a tomb of Muhammad Qutub Shah, who have ruled Hyderabad. And this is a symbol of Hyderabad city, Charminar at night. So these are some of the photographs of the city which speak of the history of Hyderabad city. Now we will just go into the details of Hyderabad, the founding of Hyderabad, and how Hyderabad turns into a. Okay, so the state of Hyderabad was founded by Nizamul Mulk, and the dynasty was Assoc., and he was an intermittent viceroy of the Deccan Peninsula, India, under the Mughal emperors from 1713 to 1721, and was resumed the post again under the title Asaf Zahi in 1724. So when you're going to go into the antecedents, that is the origins of the Hyderabad state. The Hyderabad state was founded by Nizamul Mulk, and he belonged to the Asaf Zahi dynasty. They were feudatories of the Mughal emperors in the Deccan Peninsula, and it was between 1713 to 1721 that the foundation was laid, and the dynasty Asaf Zahi dynasty was assumed in the year 1724. So at that time, he became virtually independent and founded the dynasty of the Nizam rulers of Hyderabad. So these Asaf Zahi dynasty are popularly known as the Nizams of Hyderabad. So the dynasty that was founded was the Asaf Zahi dynasty, and the popular name which this dynasty has acquired is the title Nizams. Okay, so the British and French participated in the War of Successions that followed his death in 1748. So this point makes it very clear that the French had their eye on Hyderabad, and the British also had an eye on Hyderabad, and there was a War of Succession, and in which both the British and the French participated. Okay, so after temporarily siding with Hyder Ali, the ruler of Mysore, principally now Karnataka state, in 1767, Nizam Ali accepted British ascendancy in Hyderabad by the Treaty of Masulipatam in 1768. So this is the first contact between the British and the Nizams. They had temporarily taken the side of Hyder Ali, who was the ruler of Mysore. And then in the year 1767, when British ascendancy was on high, Hyderabad signed a treaty, the Nizams of Hyderabad signed a treaty, which is popularly known as the Treaty of Masulipatam in 1768. Okay, so from after the Treaty of Masulipatam, what has happened, we will see. So from 1778, a British resident and subsidiary force was installed in his domains. In the year 1795, Nizam Ali Khan lost some of his territories, including parts of Berar, to to the Marathas. So two developments in the year 1778, two developments. One development is that the British stationed a resident and a subsidiary force, an army and a resident who is controlling the army in the domains of the Nizam from 1778 onwards, and Nizam Ali lost of some of his own territories, that is Beirut, to the Marathas. So at this time, you have the British, you have the Marathas, you have the Mysore, and you have Hyderabad, some important kingdoms in South India who were having political ambitions in South India. Okay, so when Nizam turned to the French, the British increased their subsidiary force stationed in his domain. The Nizam's territorial gains as an ally of the British against Tipu Sultan in 1792 and 1799 were ceded to the British to meet the cost of the force. So this is the situation. You can very clearly see that in the year 1792 to 1799, there was a kind of a conflict between Tipu Sultan and the Hyderabad. So this was a situation which the French and the British have taken advantage. And when French was trying to help out the Nizam, the British increased their subsidiary force that was stationed in the force, and they helped Hyderabad against Tipu Sultan from the year 1792 to 1799. As a benefit for this kind of support that was given by the British to the Nizam, the British got certain areas, and they got it at a free cost because they had to take up the expenses. And this was how the British slowly set their foot into the Hyderabad region and made Hyderabad come into an understanding with the British paramountcy. Surrounded, except in the west, by territory owned by or dependent upon the British, Nizam Ali Khan in 1798 was forced to enter into an agreement that placed his country under British protection, becoming the first Indian prince to do so. So Hyderabad turns out to be the first princely state. After 1798, he was surrounded by the British forces, and he was compelled to enter into an agreement, and that placed Hyderabad under the protection of the British, and that makes Hyderabad to become the first princely state in the Indian context. Okay, so this point makes it very clear how Hyderabad became the first independent princely state to go into the control of the British protection and British paramountcy. Okay, so when I'm saying here, it means Nizams. So Nizam's independence in internal matters, however, was confirmed, and Nizam Ali Khan was a British ally in the second and third Maratha wars. So now you can very clearly see that the British and Hyderabad have an understanding, and they have started taking the same side against the Marathas in the second and the third Maratha wars. That is from 1803 to 1805 and from 1817 to 1819. And Nizam Nasir-ud-Dawla and Hyderabad's military contingent remained loyal to the British during the Indian Mutiny in 1857-1858. So you can just see how the British have taken control of, by just giving freedom in internal matters, in the internal administrative matters to the Nizam. They have made him participate against the Marathas. They have made him go against the Sipai Mutiny in the years 1857 and 58. So which means that virtually the British have taken control of Nizam's kingdom, Nizam's territories, except giving him freedom in terms of internal matters. The rest of the affairs were under the control of British paramountcy. Okay, so in the year 1918, Mir Usman Ali was given the title of His Exalted Highness through the British. So you can just see how they are just giving a title, making him surrender further, and bend him further and further through the British government of India, and retained the right to intervene in his domain in case of a misrule. So in the initial stages, they gave him freedom. In the second stage, they even said that if you misrule, we will intervene. We have the right. But at the same time, they also gave him a title, which means that His Exalted Highness. So you can just see slowly how the British were taking control of the Nizamian provinces. So Hyderabad remained a peaceful but somewhat backward princely state as the movement of independence gathered strength in India. So British have taken control over the Hyderabad state, and as they had taken control of the Hyderabad state, Nizam remained showed a kind of an indifference towards the state. And this was one of the reasons, though the state was peaceful, one of the reasons why the state became a backward state. So this is one important point that is connected to the backwardness of not only the Hyderabad as a state, but the Muslims as a population in the Hyderabad state. So Hyderabad Muslims ruled over a population that was predominantly Hindu. So on November 1st, 1956, the state of Hyderabad ceased to exist administratively. It was divided on linguistic lines among the states of Andhra Pradesh. This is contemporary history. I'm just mentioning for you to understand. Which took the Telangana districts, Mysore, which took the Kannada speaking districts, and Bombay, now divided between Gujarat and Maharashtra states. Berar had already been merged with Madhya Pradesh. So in 1956, you have this kind of a division. In 2014, Telangana districts, including Hyderabad, were split off from Andhra Pradesh to form an independent state of Telangana. That is the emergence of modern Telangana. The Nizams of Hyderabad constituted a Muslim dynasty and ruled over predominantly Hindu population. And it is a tribute to the dynasty's government that its Hindu subjects over the years made no effort to evict the Muslim aristocracy by allying themselves with the Marathas or the Mysore or with the European powers. So this is an important point. So I just gave you 1 or 2 points which are connected to the modern Indian history, and 1 point which is connected to the contemporary history when we are trying to understand about the history of the princely states of Hyderabad. So the last point mentions very clearly that the natives, the local people, they never supported they never supported the Marathas or the Mysores or the European powers to free themselves from the Muslim rule. This is an interesting observation that we can make when we're trying to understand the history of Telangana or the history of this region when we're trying to trace it out from the times of the princely states. Okay, so now we are going to take up Mysore. Mysore was also a princely state. It was an independent state. And we have here have some slides which show you the Mysore kingdom in the Indian map. And you can see the territory, you can see the map of India, you can see the territory which was under the control of Mysore kingdom or the Mysore princely state. Here we have another photograph of the Mysore kingdom, and I am also showing you some of the flags which belong to this particular region. And here the flag of the Sultanate of Mysore at the entrance of the fort of Bangalore. I have just given you these slides for you to get an understanding of the kind of times that we are talking about the princely state of Mysore. Okay, so here I'm showing you Mysore Palace, which was built between 1897 and 1912. This is a beautiful palace. You can see as it is. And now we will go into the details of the Kingdom of Mysore. The Kingdom of Mysore was a realm in southern India, traditionally believed to have been founded in 1399 in the vicinity of modern city of Mysore. So this is the root. The root point says that the Kingdom of Mysore was founded in the year 1399 in and around the city of Mysore. The kingdom, which was founded and ruled for most part of the dynasty, was the Hindu Wadiyar family, which served as a vassal state of the Vijayanagara Empire. So we are taking the antecedents. It was founded in the year 1399 in and around Mysore, and the Wadiyar family was the first family, and it served as a vassal state of the Vijayanagara Empire. So this is the antecedent. The 17th century saw a steady expansion of its territory, and during the rule of Narsaraja Wadiyar I and Chikkaraja Devaraja Wadiyar, the kingdom annexed large expanses of what is now southern Karnataka and parts of Tamil Nadu to become a powerful state in the southern Deccan. So the historical developments and the historical antecedents, and then the historical development from 17th century. In the first point, I have given you an idea of the historical antecedent, and in the second point, I'm just trying to trace out the history of, or I'm trying to give you an idea of the history of Mysore from the 17th century onwards. During a brief Muslim rule, the kingdom shifted to a sultanate style of administration. Okay, so you have the Wadiyars, and after the Wadiyars, you have the sultanate. So initially it had the Hindu style of administration, and when it was shifted to the Muslim rule, you have the sultanate administration or the Muslim methods of administration during this particular period. Okay, so during this time, Mysore experienced sustained growth in per capita income, structural change in the economy, increased pace of technological innovation, and reached height of its economic and military power and domain in the later half of the 18th century under the de facto ruler Hyder Ali and his son Tipu Sultan. So when we are trying to trace out the history of Mysore, we're trying to, and how it turned into a princely state, we are trying to trace it out from the times of Hyder Ali, when it became a military power in the 18th century, and his illustrious son, Tipu Sultan. These were the two rulers who have made the Mysore into a sultanate and have contributed to the growth of this particular region in the economic aspects and technological, and brought about certain structural changes in the economy of this particular region. Following Tipu Sultan, the kingdom of Mysore was annexed and divided by the Madras Presidency and the Nizam. So after the downfall of Tipu, you have Mysore kingdom going into being divided into two parts, that is Madras Presidency, and a part of it has gone into the control of Nizam. So the remaining territory was transformed into a princely state, and the 5-year-old son or scion of the Wadiyar family, that is Krishnaraja III, was installed on the throne with Chief Minister Diwan Purnaya, who had earlier served under Tipu, handling the reins as regent of Lieutenant Colonel Barry Close, taking charge as the British resident. Okay, so again, you have the Wadiyars, and then you have the Sultanate, and now you have the descendants of Wadiyar, that is Krishnaraja III, coming back to the kingdom of Mysore, and you have a regent who was very close to Lieutenant Colonel Barry Close, and he becomes the resident. So you find slowly the British stepping into, as it has happened in the case of Hyderabad, Now it is also the same thing is happening in the case of Mysore also, where Colonel Berin becomes a resident, and Purnaya, who was appointed as the chief minister for Krishnaraja III, who was in close rapport, who had a proper understanding with Barry Close, becomes the British resident. So you have the historical antecedent, you have the again British playing an important role in becoming or bringing the kingdom of Mysore under their military control. The way the British brought about these princely states under their military control happens to be in the first stage, they extend help. The same thing happened in the case of Hyderabad. Here also in the first stage, they are extending help, and in the later stage, they appoint a resident, and finally they take administrative control when they go in for investments in these princely states. That is the process in which the British have taken control of almost all the princely states in the Indian context. So the British then took control of Mysore's foreign policy, as I was telling you, and also exacted an annual tribute and a subsidy for maintaining a standing British army in Mysore. As I have just said you, they maintained a standing army for the protection of Mysore kingdom against any kind of an external force. As Diwan, Purnaya distinguished himself with his progressive and innovative administration until he retired from service in 1811 and died shortly thereafter, following the 16th birthday of the boy king. He was an infant. King was an infant. Mysore came into, now just see how the British take control over the kingdom of Mysore. Mysore came into conflict with the Marathas, the Nizam of Hyderabad, the kingdom of Travancore, and the British, which culminated in the four Anglo-Mysore wars. So these were the points. The Marathas, the Nizams, and the Travancore were the areas in which Mysore was given assistance against these forces. And finally, you have Mysore coming into war with the British, the Anglo-Mysore wars. So in the beginning, they gave support to the to the Mysore, against the Marathas, against Hyderabad, against Travancore, and finally Mysore goes against British. So, and this war was a success for the British. So the success of the the first Anglo-Mysore was a stalemate. In the second was followed by a defeat in the third and the fourth. Okay, so the first, you have four levels of Anglo-Mysore wars. The first one was a stalemate without any kind of a success, but it was followed by the second, it was followed by the third, and it was followed by the fourth. Following the Tipu Sultan's death in the fourth war, in the siege of Seringampatnam, 1799, large parts of his kingdom were annexed by the British. So you have phases. You have the Wadiyars, then you have the Islamic rule, then you have the infant son, again you have the Islamic rule. So this was the way in which the British were interfering in the internal affairs of the Mysore kingdom, and they laid a siege to Seringampatnam in 1799, and large parts of the kingdom were annexed by the British, which signaled the end of the period of Mysorean hegemony over South India. So that was the end of Mysore's kingdom hegemony on South India. So the British restored the Wadiyars to their throne by the way of subsidiary alliance. So the British had two important policies. One was subsidiary alliance, and the other one was doctrine of lapse. These they have been implementing on all the princely states time and again, whenever and at whatever time which was convenient to them. So the British restored the Wadiyars to their throne by the way of subsidiary alliance and diminished Mysore, and Mysore was transformed into a princely state. So that is how I have just tried to put on all the historical circumstances in which Mysore turns into a princely state. So the Wadiyars continued to rule the state until Indian independence in 1947, when Mysore ceded to be the Union of India. Even as a princely state, Mysore came to be counted among the more developed urbanized regions of India. This period, that is from 1799 to 1947, also saw Mysore emerge as one of the important centers of art and culture in India. So this is some kind of a observation that we can make on Mysore for the period 1799 to 1947. The Mysore kings were not only men of letters, they were enthusiastic and patrons, as well as their legacies continue to influence rocket science and music and art even today. So we have the entire princely state coming, the circumstances in which the princely states have emerged, that is Hyderabad and Mysore. And we have seen how the British interfered in the internal affairs of first on the defense and then on the administration. And whenever it was necessary, they were evoking subsidiary alliance. They were also implementing the doctrine of lapse. And then eventually they turned these states into princely states under their protection. So we have observed 2 states today, and we will observe 2 more states, that is Jammu and Junagadh tomorrow.